Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about understanding the fact that maxing out is not a skill that is specific to the exact lift you're doing. And this is a big point of contention, and it's something that people have completely missed when we discuss the max effort training, because every time I talk about maxing out, I'll get people who come in and discuss overuse injuries and say, oh, you can't do that all the time, and they don't understand when I make a statement like that, it's in the context of a conjugate type system. It's in the context of you're not maxing out on the same lifts all the time. And in fact, you might even go 6 months without even doing your specific classic competition lift while maxing. Okay, and that's a point that needs to be made. And you guys watched me do this all through last year and up through January. Right? You guys watched me completely avoid the back squat and do nothing but box squats for almost a year, and then squat 522, and then do some back squat variations with chains for a while, and then back squat 552. Okay, I haven't hit a 500-pound squat on camera in like 6 years, 5-6 years before that. I had done over 485. So that's exactly the point, and we could apply that to all the other lifts. My deadlifting was even more extreme, right? We saw even more extreme examples there, as the variation was even higher. And I've only done 2 conventional deadlifts. That first one you guys saw right there was only one of the 2 standard normal conventional deadlifts I have done in over a year. I hit a 605 and then a few weeks later hit a 615. All right, perspective. The reason maxing out is a skill is that maxing out teaches us to learn how to groove. And the carryover can be to close enough lifts. In other words, if you max out on a 2-inch block pull on a sumo deadlift, that will still carry over to maxing out on a conventional deadlift. All right? If you max out on a 2-inch deficit on a conventional deadlift, that'll carry over to your conventional deadlift. If you do sumo or conventional against chains or bands, it will still carry over to maxing on pulls from the floor. The reason I say that is that as we practice maxing out, what is it that we learn how to do? Number one, we learn how to strain. It's one thing to be a little bit fatigued and to strain with a lightweight, right? Oh, you went to failure. Oh, you did a 10 rep set and then had to grind the 11th. Right? That's a certain type of strain. Straining under a weight that is the heaviest that you can grab or pull when fresh, when you're not fatigued, is a completely different type of strain. It's a completely different type of strain, because the other sort of strain is a fatigue-induced strain. This is really grabbing something that's truly heavy and all you can handle on whatever the lift happens to be. It teaches you how to strain, and it teaches you how to learn to position your body to strain maximally. Because there is only one way to lift a weight maximally. There's a lot of ways you could lock out a fatigue-inducing weight, right? There's all sorts of cheating and movements you can do. When you grab a true 1 rep max, there is only one way that your body is going to position itself to allow you to lift it. And if you go into any other position, you will miss it. And if you have to strain in any other position, it will not be your 1 rep max. You probably could have gone 20 pounds heavier had you just done it correctly. And when you ramp up to a max, what happens? Here's the other thing. We learn how to ramp to a max. We learn how to find our groove. Does anyone think there's anything technically special about hitting a 1 rep max back squat per se? Do you know how to perform a squat? Yes. Okay, you know how to perform a squat. You're not gaining technical proficiency by practicing singles with submaximal weight. You're not gaining any technical proficiency. Do you know how to perform a squat or not? Are you proficient? If you're proficient, skill work becomes a hell of a lot less useful. So we aren't maxing to learn the skill work. We're maxing to learn how to find a groove. And if you get under 10 different squats, let's say you max on a different squat every other week. All right. So let's say you have 6 completely different squats, completely different. You use different bars, different boxes, bands, chains, whatever. You have 6 different squats that you do, and you hit a max squat every other week. Let's say you alternate a deadlift with it. Over the course of 12 weeks, you will have had 6 practicing attempts at learning how to grind a different squat. Well, what happens as we ramp up to a max? We get better as we go. In other words, you might grab on whatever that bar and chain combination or weight happens to be, whatever you happen to be using. Let's say you go to do 400 pounds, and that's pretty heavy, right? And you're starting to find your groove. All right, 400 might feel heavy, but when you go up, bump another 20 and go to 420, it might move better. Why? Because you're learning how to groove it. And then you go 430 and it's really heavy, but you're getting in your groove. Then you go 440. You go 440 and it's super hard, but you're able to groove it. And then maybe you try 450 and it's an all-out straining, grinding max, and you either miss it or you make it. But you strain really hard. But the 400 actually felt heavier than the 420. Why? Because you're learning to find the groove. As you start ramping up with heavy singles, your body starts to figure out, oh, I've got to get tighter and pull this way and that way. I have to get into this position in order to make the weight move right. And you feel it. Like if something pulls you, let's say you're doing a certain squat, you get pulled too far forward, where you realize, well, I better keep my chin up and my chest up more because that was pulling me forward. That's the cure to a good morning squat, by the way. It's pulling me too far forward. So I better learn to pull in tighter on this particular one. This one's harder than some of the others as far as the way it pulls me forward. You learn to adjust as you go. You learn to drive the knees out and get external rotation at different points because it's a different squat. But as you ramp up to it, you get into the groove more and more with every single that you do, because people forget that a max is not doing 1 rep. A max is doing 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 singles on your way up to the max. With each of those, you get better at that specific lift right there at the moment, because you're having to learn how to find the groove for it. Right? That skill transfers. If you're used to getting under a different squat, pull, or press all the time and finding the groove as you make 10 and 20 pound jumps on your way up to a max, what happens? You just get good at finding your groove. So what happens when you all of a sudden do the classic lift that you haven't done? You already have practice at straining. You already have practice at finding your groove. So if you have gained more muscle and gained more strength since the last time you hit that lift, what's going to happen? You're going to PR on it. You're going to PR on it without having practiced it. And I have clients who do the same thing. Not just me, people I coach. I have a guy who had like a 405 squat. All right? We did all these other lifts. He did no normal back squat and comes in and hits a 415. By the way, this is an advanced lifter. This is not someone who only started training 2 or 3 years ago. Okay. Then he hits a 425 squat. Then 6 weeks later, he hits a 445 squat. He has not done a single normal back squat in between there. He's done a lot of box work for his rep and volume. He's done box squat maxes. He's done different deadlift maxes. He does pause squat maxes. But we took him up there. Every time he does a back squat, he PRs. Every time he deadlifts, he PRs. Because maxing out is a skill that carries over to other variations. It's not specific just to the lift that you're doing. And that seems like a lot of people don't grasp that. When you get it, it's kind of an epiphany moment. It's like, oh, that makes sense once you do it and you try it, and then all of a sudden you PR on a lift you haven't done. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.